as far as actually history is concerned, India, Bharat, has actually a long history, and we are wealthy to have actually many historians actually being with us, from Vatmiki to Vyasa with Ramayana and Mahabharat, and after that actually even many others actually from indigenous historians were there. Later Chinese came, Greek came, and the travelers came and actually had their own accounts actually about their history. Then Mughals and many histories are there. But in general, the question is actually now, who all wrote our histories? Who all were they who wrote the history of India?
Uh, I would like to divide my answer into two parts. The first part concerns the ancient period, ancient Indian history. The people, early visitors to India, they were attracted by the image that India had created in across the world, that this was the land of wisdom. So the earliest person who's supposed to have come to India is Pythagoras. I think we still study Pythagoras' theorem in school. But what is not so well known is that Pythagoras, when he went to his kingdom, he is supposed to have talked about the theory and the philosophy of metempsychosis. Now, what is this theory and philosophy? It is belief in rebirth. And we know that belief in rebirth remains such an integral part of our philosophy and our thought process that even today you may not find any Indian who's unaware of this. That you have to take rebirth. So it remained a very important part and remains a very important part of our tradition and philosophy. Uh, Pythagoras talked about it in Greece, but after that, we are not able to trace, that continuity of that belief system over there. But in India, it remained a part and remains a part of our thinking, philosophy, and belief system. So, what I'm trying to say is that the early people who came to India, they came to India because they were attracted by India's image as the home of wisdom, knowledge, and deep spirituality. And all your viewers would be very aware of the series of Chinese travelers who came. Yuan Sang is the most well known, but before Yuan Sang, we had other Chinese travelers, and after him, we had other Chinese travelers. By that time, Buddhism had spread to China, Tibet, all these parts. And these people, they were so in awe of the teachings of the Buddha and the philosophies and the different schools that developed after Buddha, that they came in search of Buddhist texts. So we have, Yun Sang himself writes how many texts he took back, Sanskrit texts he took back. And, he visited Kashmir, he stayed in Nalanda. So important centers of Indian spiritual tradition he visited, and he has written copiously about them. So there is no debate and there is no room for doubt. And all the other Chinese travelers are also, their texts, many of them are available to us. Some of them have been lost and some of them had not been translated. And one thing I want to say to you, if you go to Bodh Gaya, then in the temple, you will find many inscriptions that were recording the presence of Chinese who had come to pay homage at the Mahabodhi temple. So this is very interesting. Now, what happens is that at some point, when we have the birth of the Arab Empire in the Middle East, then the control of the oceans, it goes into the hands of Arabs. So what happens is the direct link between India and Europe gets broken. Before that, there was a direct link, but the direct link, because this entire region becomes an Arab controlled area. So we do not have any accounts of European travelers who are coming from Europe to India. We have some accounts of European travelers who take the land route and try to reach China. And so they visit India on the way to or back. The most important account which everyone has heard of is by Marco Polo. You see, Marco Polo. And that's a very detailed account. He did not visit all parts of India because he was on the way to China and coming back from China home. He touched only parts of India along the coast. But he writes in detail about India. After that, and so there are some missionaries who are on their way to China, 3-4 of them, and they stop either on the way or on the way back, and we have some letters home, which we have. I've included those in my book that you mentioned, The India They Saw. That's a collection of foreign accounts of India from the 8th to the 19th century. Now, the next important turning point while we're discussing the European accounts of India happens in 1498. Now, what happens in 1498? Vasco da Gama comes to India by a new route and he lands in the south. So, with the advent of Vasco da Gama and the discovery of another route to India, we again have a series of foreign travelers, traders, merchants, educators, people who have come to learn about India. We have many accounts of those. And since they were coming by sea, we have very, very important accounts of the Vijayanagara Empire by 2 Portuguese traders, Nunes and Pais. So those are such vivid accounts. They describe the Dussehra festival. How does the ruler of Vijayanagar celebrate Dussehra? And the massive military power on display. Absolutely fascinating. In his palace, he only had women guards. So these kind of things, which are there from the writings of these European travelers, these are there. Then, of course, we have the advent of various European trading companies, not just the English, the Dutch, the French, the Portuguese. Portuguese were the first among the early ones. So Portuguese traders, Dutch traders, French traders, we have very, very important accounts of theirs. And finally, we have of officials of the East India Company. But the important thing to remember, at that time, when these European accounts begin, Mughal Empire was at its peak. So many of these European accounts write in detail about the Mughal court. Akbar had Jesuit priests who stayed in his court. Jahangir, the ambassador, Sir Thomas Roe, who came to Jahangir's court, has written a very, very fascinating account of Jahangir's court. And then, of course, we have so many others. So the people who come now are missionaries, traders, adventurers, and people just want to see, because now travel is again permissible. So they want to see. So it's a very, very rich body of literature that we have. And the best way to tackle this is not to take the whole thing at one go, but take a particular period and a particular area and focus on the accounts that were written at that time. I hope I have not given too much of a detour to your question.